Hey guys, we have got a special treat for you today. I have Nate, my son-in-law from the YouTube channel Nate and Sutton. Say hey, Nate.
What's going on?
Thank you so much for being here with me. We're going to do a little Zoom call interview. I know that some of you watch his channel and you get to see what they share on their channel, but a lot of times there's things that you want to know that people don't like talking about themselves. So you don't just voluntarily come on and say stuff about yourself. You almost have to be asked for that. So I'm doing this interview to let you know some behind the scenes, a little bit more about Nate, who he is as a person, how he became who he is. And I'm going to kind of break it up into kind of two sections. Is that cool, Nate, to do that? Do it
Yep,
that way?
that sounds good.
Okay, what we'll do, the first part is just kind of getting to know Nate a little bit better, who he is as a person and how he became who he is. Then the second half is going to be advice, because my channel is all about advice for young people, especially in their teens and 20s. So I'm going to phrase some questions for Nate to offer some advice from his point of view, and hopefully you guys can take some good nuggets away from this interview. You ready to roll?
Let's do it.
All right, cool. First question, and I did give you a little heads up on what some of these questions were going to be because I didn't want to catch you totally off guard. My questions are down here, so if I look away from the screen, don't freak out. It's just I love making eye contact with your beautiful blue eyes, but I'll have to look away to see some of the questions. All right, so here we go. First question: tell me about your immediate family and kind of some, like, what was that like as a kid, and maybe some things as a kid growing up that stuck with you that you still remember today.
Mm, yes. So I am the third oldest, I guess is how you could say it, of four children. So I have two parents who are still married, which I'm very grateful for. And I have two older brothers and a younger sister. And growing up, man, I just feel like when I think back to me as a little kid, I think of like just kind of a weirdo. Like I was just into like all kind of weird things, whether it be dinosaurs and like wanting to have a tail, to like exotic
Whoa, whoa, what?
wanting to have a tail. I wanted to have a tail when that was like my
Like
ultimate.
literally a tail, like a dinosaur tail. You
Yeah,
wanted
like
one.
I used to put a belt in the back of my pants and run around the house and like pretend that I actually had a tail. So, so I was always,
You might want me to edit that one out.
yeah. So I was always in like exotic animals and kind of a quiet kid, and I think that had a lot to do with my position in my family as being like the youngest of two older brothers, and then I had a younger sister. So it was like my two older brothers were always like friend, buddy together, and then my younger sister was kind of like with my mom most of the time. So I was just kind of out doing my own thing, trying to find ways to get weird by the day. So I feel like I was a quiet kid, and unfortunately, I feel like most of my childhood is a kind of a blur. Like I feel like I don't really have too many memories that really stand out. Besides like when I was always an athlete, so playing baseball, I really enjoyed playing baseball and like victories. I was a pitcher, and then I later on started swimming in high school, and so I feel like some of those are my greatest memories. But I always loved my family. Like I feel like I come from a really loving family, but we definitely were not like your picturesque Christian Southern family by any means. Although I was raised in a Christian household, we were just very like non-traditional. My dad is actually a converted Jew, so he grew up as a Jewish, like his whole family is Jewish, his side.
Hmm.
And so he later, after he met my mom, became a Christian. So my mom and him actually met, and him as a Jew. My mom is like a Southern Baptist, and later he became a Christian. So that was kind of crazy, and that was amazing. Maybe we can talk more about that later. I don't know, but
Oh, wow. That's
seeing my
actually a
dad.
cool blend to have that Jewish heritage, God's people. And the
Mhm.
Bible means something completely different to Jews as you're looking through the Old Testament. And that's like background history, family. So it's cool to blend that with actually, becoming a Christian.
Yeah. And so seeing that in my dad, like seeing that conversion take place in my life was like night and day. Like, you know, I know my dad before being a Christian and I know him after being a Christian. It's just like two different people totally. So
Hmm.
that's kind of a really fascinating part of my life. Um,
Hopefully in a positive way was the differences.
oh yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, if I didn't make that clear, light and day, like literally night being non-Christian day, just bright. The light came in when he converted.
Wow.
So it was really amazing to see that. Um, but yeah, childhood, I would definitely say I like my life better now than when I was a kid.
Uh,
I think overall it's a better, more pleasant life. Not that I didn't come from a great family. I love my family and think they're amazing people, but I just think me and my whole family as a whole kind of have developed in a good direction as time has gone on.
yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I've heard some of the stories of you growing up, but just not a lot of your background and what it was like having two older brothers. I didn't realize that they clicked, so well together, and then you were kind of in the middle, and then your sister having a relationship with your mom. So you were just kind of that loner. So in a slight way, you were an only child. If you
Mhm.
look at it that way, even though you had three siblings, you did have a lot of alone time, kind of
Oh
just
yeah.
because of your age and where you were in the lineup.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, second question: when did you start embracing your faith and really just challenging yourself in your walk? I know that your mom being a Christian and then getting your dad to become a Christian, and then you're seeing that, you're in that. But then going through middle school and high school, you start realizing, and it's not all about my parents and them praying for me. I have my own personal walk. And now you're just so solid in your faith. What did that look like when you started owning your own faith and your own walk?
Yeah. Yeah, so like I mentioned already, I grew up, raised as a Christian, but the light bulb really didn't come on until I was probably like 12 years old. I remember me and my family were taking a trip back home from Florida. It was like a family vacation, and we were driving through the night, and it was just me and my mom awake in the car. Everyone else was sleeping, and she was driving. I was in the back seat. And I don't know what sparked the conversation, but I just started asking her questions about God and, what is it like about Jesus and like, what does that even mean, having a relationship with him? And it just like really like the light clicked, and I became so curious about that. And I believe it was kind of like in that moment that I was probably saved because she even walked me through prayer and everything. But even then, like I feel like my real relationship didn't start to develop with God until later on, like in high school. And like entering high school, kind of how I felt like a little bit of a loner in my house at times. I felt a little bit like a loner in high school because it was just everywhere I looked, I didn't really see anyone that I wanted to be like. It was always, I just felt like everyone was kind of a bad influence, really. And they like had their little groups and their cliques, and they were into cussing and drinking and smoking and stuff. And it just bothered my spirit so much seeing that I think that's when I really started to develop a relationship with God. And yeah, and then from there, I just feel like it's been kind of like a increase in growth year after year.
Yeah, that's cool. And each person kind of has their own story of when that happened. I didn't know that story about you and your mom. So
Hmm.
that's really cool that you were able to have that moment with her and her actually be your mentor and walk you through that. That's really cool. And then kind of taking it on yourself and diving deeper and figuring out what that meant for Nathaniel
Hmm.
growing up. What
Yeah.
does that look like, and how do you dive deeper, or how do you become an influence on other people? And yeah, I could definitely see how that would be very impactful.
Hmm.
Another thing about you now is you've got a very, very strong entrepreneurial spirit. You love doing your own thing, finding out your own way to combine your passions with earning a living, to figure out what you love, what you're passionate about, and then figuring out how to turn that love into an income. And you've gone through several trials and errors. People would know you on your channel and they're like, oh, they've got, Wedflix, they've got this successful wedding videography business. It didn't just happen. Just like any successful entrepreneur, you've got a background, you've got a bunch of trials and errors where you were expressing your entrepreneurial spirit and realizing, either A, it wasn't going to work, B, you're not making any money, or C, you didn't really like it,
Mhm.
one or the other. So how did you, going through those phases, figure out that you had an entrepreneurial spirit? And then what did that look like actually finding something that worked, that clicked?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that really began when I dropped out of college. I was in Athens, so once I was going to the University of Georgia, and I dropped out just after 3 months, so I wasn't there very long at all. And it was because I just knew it was not the place for me. I'm just so miserable every day there. I felt like I couldn't take another minute, so I was like, I got to get out of here. So once I dropped out, I still lived in Athens. So I was constantly surrounded by college students everywhere I went, whether it was to the grocery store, coffee shop, whatever. I see students studying. And it just kind of hit me. I'm like, these college students work so hard. Like they put so much time and energy into studying their classes, their tests and whatnot. And I'm like, if I put half that amount of energy into starting a business, like I could do anything. So I feel like I was inspired by college students because I'm like, I mean, you think about it, they go a minimum of like 2 to 4 years all day, every day. They're just so embraced in studying for these tests. And a lot of times, unfortunately, it doesn't really equate to much, but sometimes it does. And I was just thinking, man, like if I just came up with something I was passionate about and I went to school every day, hours for years, I mean, what I could accomplish anything is what I felt like. I was just so fueled by that. I'm like, I'm gonna become a college student, but for my own business. So that's really when I feel like the light, like the entrepreneurial light came on. I'm like, wow, there's so much opportunity here. And I know we're going to get into this a little bit later about how to save and invest and all that stuff. But I feel like I was just in a really good position because I was always a saver, money wise. Growing up, I'd never really liked to spend my money if I didn't have to, so I saved it. So it really just put me in a great position because when I dropped out of college, I wasn't like, oh, I have to get a job right now to survive. I had some financial cushion where I could just sit back, figure out what I'm really passionate about and spend time doing it, even if it means not making money for 6 months, a year, or whatever. So yeah, that was definitely the time period where I was like, yeah, I'm in it to be in business for myself.
Yeah. What did it feel like though when people hear about somebody that's entrepreneurial, usually it's when they're successful and they're riding high. And then a person watching that from the outside goes, man, he's so lucky. He's got that. And I wish that could be me. And they don't really hear the backstory of the things that you tried that didn't work so great, that failed. Maybe some things where you just internalize and you're asking yourself, crap, is this really not for me? Am I going to have to go get a job like everybody else? Do I have to go get a job and work for somebody else, or is something eventually going to click? So they don't hear the struggles and the trials where you tried things and it's like, okay, it was fun for a season, it was okay, but you realize that's not really the thing for you.
Yeah.
What did that look like?
Yeah, so there was I've had probably a million different ideas of how I could, create a product or have a business that it just after going after it for a few weeks or months or whatever, you just start to see like, this is probably not going to work out. Or you just get excited about it for a day and then you're like, it fizzles away. And I had a few things like that where, one of them was even with you, we had a good run
Oh
on
yeah.
an online business where it was doing really good for, a few months there, but then it kind of fizzled away. But yeah, there's definitely, I feel like for me more than anything, it's just the mental challenges of it. And I think that's what prevents most people from being entrepreneurs, just the fear of the unknown. They don't have someone saying like, I'm gonna pay you $600 a week for this job. You don't have that security at all. And that's why the financial cushion is just so huge. If you ever have a dream of being an entrepreneur, I just feel like you make it 10 times harder on yourself if you have to make money today, because then all your energy and effort goes to working somewhere. And then unfortunately, I feel like that kind of is a downward spiral because now you're usually having to settle for a job to make money that you need right now. And that a lot of times the people in that environment are not entrepreneurial minded. And if you're around people like that all day, your dreams of creating your own business or whatever are probably going to go, down the drain.
Yeah, very true. I know that was kind of tricky for you to finally land in a spot where you felt like, I'm home, I'm in a great spot, this is working, this is like the best idea yet. So I
Mm.
know that was comforting for you.
Oh
The
yeah.
last question on getting to know Nate better before we go into some advice questions. Describe some of the toughest challenges that you've had and how you overcame them. I know a lot of people watching or listening, they've got their own challenges, their own stuff, and maybe they're in something right now and they just don't know how to get through it. So just give me an example of maybe something that was really tough for you, how you came through that and got to the other side.
Hmm. Yeah, so I would say overall in my life, probably the biggest challenges that I've have faced were my physical deformities.
Hmm.
I mean, I laugh at it, but it's really not that funny. Um, it's so growing up, I had kind of some physical issues going on. Like I was born with my chest that sunk in, and it just looked really weird with my shirt off, and I had a really big underbite, and it made me have a lisp when I talk, and people made fun of me for the way I spoke, even my brothers and just friends. Everyone would just make fun of the way I talk because it was just kind of like I had a lisp. And that just that can really hurt someone's self-image and their confidence. And so overcoming that, like I would literally try to break my jaw at times in hopes that like I'd go to the hospital and they would fix it and make it right, just because it was that much of a burden on me. And um but looking back at it, I really think it was just a blessing. Maybe not the deformities were blessings, but like God can do, He can just turn anything into gold. So I think God really used those struggles in my life to develop me now, like the person that I am now. And the way I fix so that those challenges may not be the most inspirational story, but the way that I felt like some of those issues were solved was through surgery. I had surgery on my chest and I had 3 surgeries on my jaw, and that really just, that kind of fixed the issue there. But also I had some internal struggles that went along with that I had to overcome, and I feel like God really got me through that, giving me strength and just over time letting me see like the person that I have been my entire life. But it was just kind of, I had that cloud over me of just this horrible self-image I had. Um,
Yeah, that would really be tough. And when you're going through elementary or middle school, even high school, the singling out or any opportunity that somebody is given a chance to bully somebody or belittle them or humiliate them, it's a very unfortunate, sad thing, but very real, especially in, just in life in general, but in the public school system for sure. That I can't imagine, going through school and middle school and all that, just how that was internally. And then you say your brothers, kind of joked around as well.
mhm.
That had to really, really be tough and some struggles there. For you to come out on the other side and be the strong person that you are now is a huge testimony in just your internal self, your internal conversations, your your psyche, your mindset to be
Mm,
able to get through that had to be just crazy tougher than what we're tiptoeing into right now. I can't even imagine.
yeah, it was like I was really faced with it head on in so many ways because, first of all, anytime you're self-conscious to speak, I mean that's a really big issue because it makes you not want to talk. So it's like every time I talk, being afraid that someone's gonna make fun of me. But also with my chest, swimming was my career. I mean, not my career, but my sport in high school. So every time I took my shirt off to go to a meet, I'm forced with crowds of people, staring at my chest. So it was like it was really hard to overcome those things, but thank God I'm through them now.
Yeah, that and it really made you who you are today. Just
Hmm.
an appreciation for stuff for
Oh
sure. And if you look at, tie this into biblical things, when you talk about speech impediment, Moses, one of the biggest people that God chose to deliver the 10 commandments and lead all the people out of Egypt, all the Jews out of the captivity and slavery in Egypt, he had a stutter. he had a speech impediment where he stuttered. He wasn't the greatest speaker, but that just is like God can use people like that. God can use people that have shortcomings, so to speak, to let you know that it's God doing it. Because if you were, the greatest speaker in the world and, a great looking guy or whatever, and God chose you to do something, you would have some pride and you'd be thinking, well, a lot of this is me because I'm just that good.
Mm-hmm.
But I think God picks people to where he can shine. So
Yeah.
with that, we're going to transition and we're going to kind of do like a rapid fire here because I don't want to make this too long. But in your quickest, bestest advice, let's go through some advice questions. And I came up with a few. So as a teen, going through, you were talking about some of the decisions that your teenage friends made. How did you handle peer pressure and not get sunken into the drinking or smoking weed or partying, doing stuff that you knew was out of character for who you wanted to be? How'd you handle that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, like I said earlier, it was really hard to find friends that I felt really kind of was on the same mindset as me in those areas. So much, so much so that I just kind of didn't really have friends. I mean, to this day, I don't speak to anyone that I went to high school with. Not out of like contempt or anything. Just I don't really have any close friends from high school, and I feel like I feel like for me that was the right decision. I feel like it was better for me not to have friends than to surround myself with people that were just going to drag me down. So, and I don't know if it's just my personality or whatnot, but it just never really appealed to me. Like, it just bothered my spirit so much seeing the kind of activities my peers were getting involved with, that my desire to be different and honor God with my life was just so much stronger than wanting to hang out and have company with people. So it just, and holding your values confidently, I think, is a huge thing. So, if someone comes up to you at a party or whatever, and like they ask if you want to drink, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm trying not to drink. I just don't feel like it's the best thing. I just think you're just inviting bullying and people to walk all over you in that sense. But I feel like if you hold your stance very confidently, like, yeah, I don't drink alcohol actually, and just say it, yeah, I don't drink alcohol.
Yeah.
People respect that so much more. And then, you won't really, I feel like people kind of back off.
Yeah, I think watching, Sutton more closely because I lived it with her and I saw it. But for you as well, and I'm sure you can speak to this, when you make those declarations that I'm not going to drink, I'm not going to smoke weed. That's just what I do. And then also, I'm not going to engage in sexual activities. I value my virginity and I want to hang on to that. Sutton as well, you kind of go through seasons where when you're in school, in your maybe middle school, it's like, wow, that's pretty solid. When you get into high school and then early years of college, it's, guy, you weirdo, what's wrong with you?
Mhm.
You're the outcast. But then coming to the back end of college in your early 20s, as you're getting out, it comes right back full circle again to like, wow, man, and so many people that made the wrong decisions. When you get into conversations like, dude, I wish that I would have had that resolve. So
Mm.
it goes full circle. Did you kind of see that where it's good and then it's bad?
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. It's so funny because it's like the bad kids are the cool kids in high school now. Looking at them, it's like wow, I'm just, I'm glad I'm not in their shoes. So it is really fascinating to see that, and how as you get older, it seems like those values are more valued from culture.
yeah, very true. All right, question number two. Speaking to guys in their teens and 20s, what advice would you give them for making, saving, and investing money? I know a lot of kids, want to get there in a hurry. They want to make money. They want to get that car. They want to have stuff. But just being smart, what kind of financial rules do you live by?
Yeah, I think as early as you start making money, to start saving and tithing, I think is huge, and I just love, it's such a simple rule to remember, and I live by it. I love it. The 80-10-10 rule, where you save 10% of what you make, you give 10% of what you make, and then you live off the rest. And I think is like, as soon as you start making money, if you can implement that into your life, it's just going to change. It's going to change the whole trajectory of your financial life. And then, like I mentioned earlier, if you can start saving money before you have to really use it, by the time you graduate high school or college or whatever, it's just going to make your life so much easier and stress-free and give you opportunities, because as soon as you graduate, if you're forced to start making money, it gives you no real opportunity to explore what kind of gifts you might have. Maybe you're an entrepreneur, you don't even know it, or whatever. It's such a better place to be in. But also, yeah, don't waste money on non-essentials like cars. I feel like, or expensive cars. It's something that you can get 2 cars, they both get you the same place, but just spending so much extra money to impress people or whatnot, that's just nonsense. And then also, I would say that, to be afraid of going to have debt, but to understand the difference between good debt and bad debt. So many people are like, oh, I'm never going to have any kind of debt. I'm never going to borrow any money. Never, 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 which I think can be good to a certain extent, but also to not necessarily be afraid. Like, if you have some amazing idea that you feel so confident in that you're going to go after, and you're going to start this business, and you just guarantee, so convinced it's going to be successful, to consider maybe borrowing money, and maybe from your parents or a loan or whatever, if you need some startup capital to start a business. If it's going to make you money, if you think of it like okay, I maybe have this loan that I'm going to pay $200 a month on, but it's going to make me $500 a month. That's awesome. That's amazing. But I would say be very cautious about that, and make sure anytime if you were to ever do that, to really pray about it and to know it's something that you're going to stick to no matter what. But to know that it's an option, and it can be a wise decision.
Yeah, and I think along with that, with asking others, whether it be parents or family members,
Mm-hmm.
you can't be in a position to where you get upset if they don't help you. If they don't buy into your dream, your vision, and they look at it objectively and they go, I just don't think I'm going to be a part of that. It's okay. Don't get all upset and, oh, I can't believe you're not supporting my dream. Find somebody who will, or change your dream, because one of the biggest things for entrepreneurs is the ability to listen to advice from other people. Your dream might be something that you love, but it doesn't solve a problem for other people, so they're not going to buy into your dream.
Mm-hmm.
So just be careful with asking other people, that you don't set yourself up for some big argument. But that's great advice, to be able to know that you don't have to do it all on your own. You can seek from other people. Just be wise how you go about doing that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, another question. What were some of the must-haves when you were seeking a wife? And what would you say to guys about that when they're seeking, their wife? Then what would you say to girls who are seeking a life mate? So just what were you looking for in a wife from maybe a guy point of view, and then a girl wanting that great guy? What would you kind of tell them?
Yeah. So for guys and girls, but especially guys, since we're starting there, is to find a woman that is a clear-cut Christian. It sounds funny to say, but it really is that important. And I'm not, so many times you might find a girl or someone that you're interested in, that if someone were to ask you, are they a Christian? You might say, well, they're kind of a Christian, or they seem like they have a relationship with God. And if anyone is not very strong or have a strong stance on that, I would say be very weary, because it just, most of the time, it's not going to be what you think it is. From my experience, a girl that might say, yeah, I believe in God. And then you think she's so pretty, and you get so caught up on, you want it to work. You're like, oh, she said she believes in God, I can be with her. But to really investigate, like, does she have a personal relationship with God? Do you guys have the same morals and values? Because it's not about labels. It's not about, oh, she's a Christian, I have to date a Christian. It's just aligning your spirits. It's going to make, for a wife, it's like, I've seen from personal, or not personal, but in my family, I see what unequally yoked relationships look like, and how in the beginning, it's like, yeah, you think it'll probably work out. And it's funny because my parents, I feel like, are such the exception to the rule, and I would never depend on anything like that. But I have other family members who have experienced that, and what that does is just incredible. The amount of just spiritual warfare that goes on between a man and a woman when their spirits are not aligned. And there's a reason God tells us to be equally yoked. And it's not him trying to prevent us from being with the prettiest girl. It's him wanting us to have the best life possible. And so that's just, I would say that's the biggest thing for a guy looking for a wife.
Very true. No, I hear that. And then being really still kind of a newlywed, you're a few years in, but you're also a new dad. So what you've learned, like a crash course on how to be a husband, how to be a dad in a hurry. It's just like 4 years ago, you were, single, living at home, doing your own thing. 4 years later, you're married, you got a 2-year-old and a baby on the way any day now. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
So what would you kind of say as your biggest things for how to be a good husband, how to be a good dad in the crash course that you've had over the last few years?
Yeah. Well, firstly, I would say I learn every day. I feel like every day I'm learning, and learning from my mistakes and from other people. But the biggest things that I've learned are praying together is so huge. Early on, pray together every day if you can. Reading the Bible together, going to church together regularly, learning and speaking each other's love languages and apology languages. I knew about the love languages. I didn't know about the apology languages. And I learned that from our premarital counselor, by the way, which I highly suggest getting a premarital counselor if you don't have one. And we have a great recommendation if you're looking for one. And then other than that, just really having the mindset of outdoing one another and showing honor. We talk about that in some of our videos, just always looking for opportunities of like making it, I'm a competitive guy. So making it a mental competition, like I'm going to be a better husband than she is going to be a wife, kind of thing. It can be a little fun competition there, but those are the main things I would say, but I'm definitely learning every day. Yeah, hopefully that answered
it. Yeah, I think the big thing is you never master it. I'm 31 years into my marriage and I'm still learning, I'm still growing, I'm still challenging myself and trying to figure out how to be better, how to serve her more, love her more. But it is a good and worthy challenge. Like you said, you try to outserve each other. You don't go into a marriage to become complete. You don't, they're not there to make you happy. So you got to get out of that mindset and realize that it's a team effort. You're together in it. You're out trying to outdo each other, outserve each other, outlove each other, and not keep score. Because even though you do take that challenge on where you're trying to outdo, you're not keeping score, because that's just, unhealthy altogether. Yeah. But what about being a dad? You've got little Oakland, beautiful little Oakland, and you got one on the way. I'm sure with becoming a dad, you certainly learn about selflessness, because now your time is his time and Nathaniel's time is kind of cut into, because you've got now a super responsibility.
Yeah. And kind of my answer to this one, there's also something I wanted to say about the previous one too, that answers both of them, is also every so often taking inventory of like, where your relationship is at with your wife or husband, and where your relationship is at with your kids. And is it kind of what you've always dreamed? Because days can go by and you start picking up little bad habits, whether it's maybe, not greeting each other when you come in the door, or saying good morning to each other, or looking at your phone while you're playing with your kid. And these habits can start to sneak up on you weeks after and months. And a year later, all of a sudden you're like, wow, my life is not really I'm not really being the husband or the dad that I always dreamt that I would be. So I think taking inventory every once in a while is just kind of like analyzing what's going on in my house. Like, what does my daily life look like, and kind of analyzing it there. But also, as far as being a dad, once again, learning every day for sure. But also, I think the biggest thing for me has just been being very intentional, or trying my best to be very intentional with my time with Oakland, and not letting it be casual, and like really challenging myself for, okay, I'm gonna spend an hour with him right now. Let's not look at my phone. Let's not get distracted. Let's really play with him and do what he wants to do because it's all about him. So that's, I mean, that would probably be my biggest thing is, and praying too, praying and just asking God to help you become the husband or the wife or dad or mom that he wants you to be. And I think that's huge too.
Yeah, and that's excellent. And I think through kind of two lenses where you've got your own experience and what you want to do for your child, you also kind of look back at your parents and what they gave you. So you're in a father role and then you're in a son role. And in the son role, you kind of take okay, what did my parents do that I really, really loved?
Hmm.
What did they do that I didn't love so much? And then you take that filter when you're in the dad role and you say, I'm going to do a lot more of this, and I'm going to do a lot less of this. So you kind of take what you learned in the child role and you apply that in the dad role. And I talk about that a lot on my channel, where I didn't really have a present dad growing up. I was raised by a single mom. So what my dad wasn't able to give, I made sure I gave my three daughters that tenfold, because I knew what I wanted as a kid. So I tried my best to deliver that as a dad. I'm sure you kind of look through that filter as well, where you want to give Oakland like so much more than you ever thought or could imagine for yourself.
Oh yeah, definitely. And also, I was going to say, one thing I forgot to mention is really practicing gratitude. And I think gratitude it can come maybe more natural to other people than some other people, but for me, I love just practicing it, and I feel like it really grows that gratitude muscle. And by practicing it, by praying and thanking God for like just such little things. When I see Oakland, like just the fact, like the other morning, I was giving him a bottle, and I'm just feeling his heart beat, and just so thankful that he has like a strong heart. Like how many parents out there just wish that their kid could get off of some sort of life support, or and there's just, I mean, it's just, if you start to think about all the things that we take for granted, it's absurd. So just
Yeah.
like tapping into some of the things that you're grateful for, and I think it just makes everything better.
Very true. I think that's a good note to end on. Just gratitude for life, and just
Mhm.
kind of looking in perspective. No matter where you are, no matter how bad things may be, you've always got things to be grateful for. There's always somebody, some situation that's worse off than you are. So you can always look through perspective at other people and other challenges that they're going through, and then realizing, hey, my little bag of stuff that I'm going through isn't that bad. It's really not. And I'm so grateful that it's not that bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that kind of wraps it up. Thank you, Nate, so much. I hope that people that watch your channel and see this are now kind of understanding you as a person a little bit more, because it's awkward when you are in control of your own show and it's you and Sutton and just, hey, everybody sit down and let me tell you about myself. That's not what your show is about. And you're not able to share stuff, intimate stuff like that, because it's a little weird. So I wanted to give you the outlet for being able to share stuff, let people know you as a person a little bit more, and why I'm so proud and happy. And I praise God all the time that you came into our lives, that I was praying for Sutton's husband all our life and never dreamt that it would be answered in such exclamation points with you. And I'm very grateful. Speaking of gratitude, very grateful that you're in our family. I think you're a perfect fit for my daughter and for our family. So thanks for taking time to do this.
Oh yeah. Yes. Thank you very much for saying that. Got goosebumps all over. So I think that's a good sign.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm sorry it went so long. Hopefully, I'm doing this on Zoom, and I don't know what my limitations on time are. So hopefully this is even recording. But even if it wasn't recording, I'm enjoying talking to my son-in-law and just getting to know him better and spending some time in this whole quarantine thing where we're trapped inside of our houses. So Zoom has been a good little outreach to stay in touch with each other. So thank you again. Thanks for joining us, people. Hopefully you got something out of this, got some good nuggets. Nate gave you some great walkaways. So see you next time. And thanks for being here, Nathaniel. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. See you guys.